Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So here I'm in Whitechapel, London, and behind me you see the shell of the Royal London Hospital. But I'm not here to talk about the hospital as such, which as you can see is undergoing very extensive renovation. I don't think it's going to be used as a hospital again. You might have seen the series called The London about 2005, the drama series set in the Edwardian period. But anyway, I'm here to talk about nurse Edith Cavell, who worked at this hospital before the First World War. There is a blue plaque to her somewhere. Edith Cavell is renowned for having been executed in the Second World War by the German army for helping Allied prisoners of war escape. So Edith Cavell was born in Norfolk, the daughter of an Anglican clergyman. She had a number of siblings. She was very well behaved, religiously devout. She went to Norwich High School for Girls, which is one of the most distinguished schools in the county. And then she decided she wanted to become a nurse. She wasn't quite academic enough to become a doctor. There were very, very few female doctors in those days. She worked as a governess for a while. She was very respectable and to teach the children, but also to bring them up in the broader sense about being polite and all the rest of it. Anyway, so she trained as a nurse, and then she worked here for a while, and then she moved to Belgium before the First World War. She never married. The closest creatures to her were her two dogs, and then she was promoted. She was a matron by the end. She lived to the age of 50, and remember, if you're a married woman those days, if you got married, you're usually required to give up your job, often the case in nursing. So any job with a degree of training you usually have to give up if you're married. That often applies to teachers as well. So now working class women, even though they're married and had children, they often had to work outside the home because money was so tight. And remember, obviously, being a mother was much more time consuming back then. No labour-saving devices, no washing machine, no dishwasher, no Hoover, all the rest of it, and no fridge. So had to buy fresh food every day. And no supermarkets, go to all the individual shops. The rich could afford servants to have things delivered to them. But anyway, back to Nurse Cavell. The important thing about her is the First World War breaks out. Germany conquered Belgium in short order, but for a thin sliver in the very west of Belgium. And so enemy civilians were usually interned, as in British civilians. If we let them free, they will sabotage us or they will engage in espionage. If we send them home, they'll simply work in the war economy. You know, bullet factories or farms or anything, or taking a man's job as a bus driver, whatever it is. If it's a woman or a boy, he'll grow up to join the army. Civilians not allowed back. But she said to the German army, please let me be free, because I promise I won't commit any acts hostile to Germany. I'm simply a nurse, I'm a humanitarian, I'm here to tend the wounds of soldiers of any nationality. And so the German authorities said, fair enough, okay, we believe you. You can remain free, carry on doing your work at the hospital, which she did to the best of her ability, and by all accounts she was superb at it. However, there were some British soldiers who were brought to the hospital and she cared for them, but she later helped them escape to the Netherlands, a neutral country, whence they went back to the United Kingdom, rejoined the British Army, back to Belgium and France to engage in fighting again and kill more German soldiers. Now, the long ears of German intelligence found out about this, and so she was charged with being a spy. She wasn't quite a spy in the sense of actually collecting secret information, but she had claimed to be a neutral. They knew she was British, but she claimed that she was not committing any hostile act to Germany, whereas in fact she was, and she was helping the Allied war effort. So the Germans sentenced her to death by firing squad. So she wrote a very stirring letter in her condemned cell the night before her execution, saying, standing in view of eternity, as I knew she had hours before she was going to be killed, but saying that I can't remember what his patriotism is not enough. I must have no hatred for anyone. So she bore no ill will towards her captors. A German Protestant clergyman ministered to her in her final minutes, and then she was executed by firing squad at the national shooting range just outside Brussels. She'd been incarcerated in Saint-Gilles prison for a few weeks prior to that. So there's a great outcry in the United Kingdom, and British propaganda exploited her death gleefully, saying that it was such a merciless act to kill her. Now, Germany is obviously completely legally entitled to kill her. It was not murder. I'm not in favour of the death penalty. I mean, I don't like war either. I'm not a pacifist. Ethically, was there a case for killing her? Yes, there was. Perhaps unwise from a propaganda point of view. Was it maybe too harsh, just imprison her? So I think it was too harsh. But you know, if they let her get away with it, more and more people are going to do it. I suppose that's the idea. But so anyway, her death was used by Allied propaganda Now, the United Kingdom very rarely executed women in those days for murder. If they're convicted of murder, women were rarely executed, much less often than men. But there was no principled objection to executing women. Then, in 1916, a Countess Markievicz, she was involved in the Easter Rising in Dublin, and she was sentenced to death, but it was commuted to penal servitude for life. And the authorities say we can't very well do her to death, having raised hue and cry over the slaying of Nurse Cavell. But there was a difference, of course, because Countess Markievicz had killed people, but Edith Cavell hadn't killed anyone. All right, Cavell had indirectly killed people by sending soldiers back to rejoin the army, despite posing as a neutral. Anyway, so she was cause célèbre after her death, and she was reinterred from the prison cemetery, and her body was brought to Westminster Abbey for a funeral of pomp and circumstance, and then conveyed by railway carriage to outside Norwich Cathedral, where she was buried with the greatest of honour. So that's Nurse Cavell. You may have seen the statue of her just off Trafalgar Square in London. There's a hospital outside Peterborough named in honour of her. I know St Mary's School wanted you to have a house named after Nurse Cavell. So that is a little bit about Edith Cavell. Toodaloo.